Look up. Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Friday morning A Course in Miracles group and the TGF online spiritual center that we have. It's just emerged out of a Course in Miracles group and gathering, and we're so happy to have all of you with us. Live streamers, welcome. I hope this is working better. We went to Google Hangout for a couple of the past weeks because there was a glitch in this platform, and I tried it a couple of times. I came down late at night and on Sunday and tested it. I couldn't get the camera to work, and finally I just abandoned that whole webinar, started a brand new one, which required that all of you guys re-register. Thank you for doing that. There was like 3,800 people that were registered in the last one, and now they all have to re-register to come on. But we also have the emails for all of those 3,800, so we're sending them notices on where to go for your live streaming. But we have the new platform set up. I hope it's working good for you guys. And we have some new people that are here this week. We have James that came from Massachusetts. We have a couple of people came from Colleen and Andrea that came from Connecticut. Welcome. Oh, Claudia and Andrea that came from Connecticut. Welcome. And Lori from Dover, and Lynn, who lives in Florida now, but she used to be in Dover. And then all of our regulars, thank you all for being here with us. We appreciate your coming, and we look forward to sharing with you today. And I mostly look forward to hearing Nancy Fitzgerald to share her talk today with us. I'll talk about that in just a minute. And I think we have somebody that's going to share the thought for the day. Claudia's going to do that? Thank you, Claudia. See, when you come as a first-time visitor, don't be afraid. We grab you when you come in, and this is what you get to do. Thank you for participating.
Sure, it's a pleasure. I've been watching you guys every Friday for some time now, so it's really nice to be here in person. And I saw the love online, and I just really wanted to experience it for ourselves, Andrea and I. So the thought for today is Enough is as Good as a Feast by John Haywood. And what do you love about being extraordinary? And personally, we're all extraordinary, and because we're all our Christ self at the heart of it. And I know the ego tends to my ego self likes to try to think of myself as special. But at the end of the day, it's really the Christ self that's what's extraordinary. And so I know just in coming here, asking Holy Spirit, what to say, what to do, who to speak to, and to whom. And so I hope that that's helpful for whoever's listening. And just please do your best to be vigilant, to look and see what others are bringing out in you to try to heal, because that's really what this is all about, is healing ourselves and awakening so that we can go home. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. You're hired. It's a volunteer position. That was awesome. Thank you for that sharing. That was great. And that's what we mostly love about this group, this gathering, is that none of us are special. None of us are super teachers. None of us are like at different high levels. We really have amazing orators and people that share from their heart and their being, just right where they are. I love it when we can listen to other teachers of God to express their, where they are in this awakening experience, because we're all having our own different experience of experiencing what we know to be the truth for where we are right now. And it shows up for us in different ways. For some of us, it's it's a great poem, or a great, for others, a song, or something that we're involved in our lives. Mostly, because this is a classroom curriculum that we're in Awakening, we each have our own curriculum, individually, specifically, on purpose for us, so that the light of truth that we are, it'll locate that little stuff that's keeping us from hearing so well, or keeping us from being happy. It'll locate that. We don't have to go on a search party to find it, right? It shows up with our relationships and our experiences, and then we use those examples. We get to use them to share with others how they can, like, maybe not go through what we went through, or go through it faster, or maybe some example that we have will be helpful to others. But that's why we love to, I love that expression that you just shared, and I love hearing all of the different teachers that we have to come up here and share with us their connection with God, with the God self that we are. And thank you all for being here. We're going to have a short meet and greet for you guys that are online. We'll be right back. I have an idea that I'm going to share with our leadership and the board today that might make this next experience a little bit different for you guys that are online. But in the meantime, we're going to turn the sound off. We're going to do a meet and greet, and we'll be right back. So you guys want to stand and say hello to everyone? Hello. Okay, can we come back to our seats, please, everyone? Can we come back to our seats? We're gonna, wow, a lot of more people just showed up. This is what happens when you go to the meet and greet. Everyone shows up. Okay, we're gonna get started. We're gonna have a seat, please. We're going to get started, please. Everyone, please have a seat. Hey, do you want to introduce Nancy? Do you want to introduce Nancy? Just this. Okay. Just that. Okay. And then her background a little bit.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh my God, what a party. I'm so grateful to be here. And really, this Friday group was always intended to be what I'm feeling right now as a joining place for us all to share in this love and to be part of a direct experience. You know, so often it's just about, in the past, it was about teaching concepts and listening to them as if we're going to practice them later. And we always just felt like, all right, something has shifted and now we just want to come together and join. We're joining together. So it is my absolute pleasure to be the person introducing Nancy Meyers Fitzgerald. And she's going to be teaching today Curriculum to Learn Love, What to Undo and What to Choose. And I just love you so much, Nancy. And Nancy was someone, I'm not sure if I have the year right, but I met you in, don't tell me, in the summer of 2010, correct? Online. And Nancy lived in Florida and she was taking care of her mom down there. And I had the 40-day program, but it was a coaching program back then. It was a totally different program. It was a paid program. And I could only physically take about 10 people because they were from around the world. And I had 1-hour coaching calls. So I got a chance to really know Nancy very personally. We had calls every single week for 6 weeks. And it just developed into a friendship beyond that. And most of you know, I ditched all of that, the coaching, and because I didn't want people looking to me. This has always been a process of looking within and asking your inner teacher. So Nancy and I developed a friendship, and I love Nancy's mind. She's a scientist. And sometimes she doesn't think she's a scientist. She doesn't consider herself one, I don't think, but she has a very analytical mind that is always grounded in direct experience. And I don't know how it happened, but one day Nancy said, I'm moving here. And so Nancy moved, what year was that? That was 2014, June of 2014. So Nancy just decided to move here. And we're so grateful and honored to have you as part of this community and to have you teaching this morning. Everyone give Nancy a warm welcome.
Okay, now I can cover it. Phew. All right, let's start with a short prayer to ask that the truth and God and light and love continue to be in this room, that we're connected to the source, that all of us will get the guidance and the help and the encouragement that is our inheritance and that we deserve. And so it is. Amen. Whew, thank you for letting me start there. I only know there's kind of two parts to this. One is something like, I am in transition. And the other one is a section from the course, chapter 12, that the Sunday Course in Miracles group has been working through. And it's part of the text in A Course in Miracles that I like because it tends to have some psychology kind of approach to it. So the I am in transition thing, Lisa called out one of the big transitions, actually probably two of them. I started A Course in Miracles just about 20 years ago. I was in Pittsburgh. I had just retired early from a job that gave me some pension. It was Alcoa Technical Center, and I was a research chemical engineer. So yeah, I guess I'm a scientist. It's like a lot of professions. You land in it and you do start with your qualifications and they hire you and you keep working there and you keep working there, and it gets, for me, it got to be narrower and narrower subject, you know, and I got to be an expert in something that nobody else hardly paid any attention to. But it nevertheless was me, and they kept me going until I volunteered to be laid off after 20 years because a lot of people were being laid off. And I figured my boss was probably under pressure to choose somebody for the next round. And at that point, I'd used the thoughts in Your Money or Your Life to convince myself that I had enough money to do that. You know, that I knew what my enoughness level was. The quote this morning from Plenty of Time included, enough is like a banquet, right? My dad's phrase for enough was delightful sufficiency. So if he was asked at the end of a meal, do you want seconds? Do you want any more? And he didn't need any more, he'd say, no, thank you. I've had a delightful sufficiency. So I've always converted myself from enough, which sometimes has connotations of just barely, you know, like as opposed to plenty. So delightful sufficiencies. Anyway, transition. So I started 20 years ago. I found a buddy in Pittsburgh, and we'd go back and forth from each other's houses. And we mostly read from the text. I guess we only read from the text. And somehow I had started thinking that I'm going to find out what this book says. You know, I'm the researcher, right? And I was in a Unitarian Universalist congregation at the time. So we looked at lots of books and read them and considered what was there and took what we needed. And then somewhere along the line in there, I guess it was 2008, my mom in Florida was recognized to have dementia. I think she had it for a while, but it turns out that there was some family conflict. And I was down there for a birthday party, and I sort of looked to see what was going on. And I thought, oh, I'll just come down for a few months and see how this is. And it turns out that it was confusing enough that I got to stay. I got to stay 4.5 years. So I was kind of walked out of my house and my life in Pittsburgh. And when I was with my mom, she was concerned if I wasn't there preparing dinner because she then thought I was company and she needed to do it. So I couldn't go in the evening to a course group. And even in the morning, it felt like it was too far and too much of a commitment. So that's when a Pittsburgh course friend sent me a sample of Lisa and said, you might be interested in this. And I thought, what else am I going to do? Here I am pretty much in this house. It wasn't a bad place to be. It was actually right on the Gulf of Mexico. It was a little 75-year-old beach cottage that my parents had taken over 40 some years before. And I could walk out, once I got my mom settled after breakfast, I could walk out the side door, down the beach access, a couple hundred yards, and there I was right on the beach. So if she was settled after breakfast and had her newspaper, then she was okay with me walking because all the years I'd visited there, that was my habit. You know, okay, I'm going for my beach walk. Okay, you know, and then I could do that and come back. So I took Lisa's program, and then after my mom died, I stayed another year to sell the house, And then I stayed a couple years in Florida because I always had in my mind that I would retire at a condo on the beach. I didn't manage to rent someplace like that, but I was in the area, and some of my family was. And I stayed for a while, and I saw my family, and they'd call me at the last minute and say, "We're going to meet on Wednesday night for dinner. You want to join us?" And I would, but it turns out that I had trouble finding me there. You know, I could keep up with my family, but it wasn't, I didn't know who I was there. There wasn't quite enough course activity or community. And at some point, I was looking at Lisa's recent, at the time, a recent rewrite of the 40-day program. She did it. She's done it a couple times over the years, and I kept previewing it and giving a few comments, and previewing it and giving some more comments, and then at one point I said, "Well, how much difference would it make if I came there, if I was there instead of here?" And that's when she, in her enthusiastic, yes, you know, that would be great. I said, "Okay, I'll be there by June 1st." That was like November, and I thought, I'm not going in the middle of the winter. At least I'm going to wait till June. And that's what I did. I just picked up and came here. And I didn't even think I would know anybody in this group when I got here. But it turns out I'd been to 3 of the main retreats that Lisa and Bill had done before that. And when I walked in, there were people who recognized me, which was really cool. So after that, and I was here, I had my way of it was going to be, you know, a thought pattern of this is the way it's going to look like, and this is what my involvement's going to be like. And I started doing what was open and what was offered. It wasn't quite what I thought. And eventually it just also felt like I still wasn't myself, that I wasn't who I needed to be. So that was not too long after I got here. So since then, I've been just sort of flopping around, figuring out who I really am. And it feels to me right now like the transition is opening up. It's toward the end of the next stage. And my guide has been the voice of Jesus in a book called A Course of Love. And it felt to me like it's billed as a sequel to A Course in Miracles. It felt like he picked me up where I was, which was pretty knowledgeable and familiar with A Course in Miracles, and grounded in it. I mean, I was actually applying it. And I was applying it because when I was in Florida and I took the coaching program with Lisa, the big idea from that was different was, instead of just finding out what this book is about, I could be experimenting with it. And okay, the scientist in me says, okay, I can do that. You know, I'm just going to go experiment. I'll try it out and see what happens. So the experimentist in me just will look at something that looks interesting, or I'm getting better at saying, I'm drawn to that. I'm getting a hit that I'm supposed to be there. I think I'll just go do that. I'm doing a retreat with Irene Tompkinson soon around that kind of guidance. And I don't really know what it is or what I'm getting myself into, but it's what's going to come next. So I'm experimenting. In October, I went to the 9-day School for the Work that Byron Katie offers. She had intrigued me for 10 years, and I'd actually done a weekend with her while I was in Florida as one of the times I got a break to go do something else. But the 9-day School for the Work sort of intimidated me. It sort of frightened me. You know, like for a whole 9 days, I'm going to go look at all these thoughts that upset me, the ones that I notice because I'm agitated or whatever. And there was certainly some of that at the school, but there was also this amazing environment. There were things that were taught and learned that she never mentioned as far as the setting and the kind of activities she asked of us without explaining much, except asking at the end, for instance, so how was that experience? And then out of 250 people, different people would say what their knowing was after that experience. So at this point, I really feel, and with the help of Monica and several rounds of coaching with her while she was my roommate, I'm almost through with the mourning of having her move out as my roommate. We were together for 3 years, and as we were living together, we were teachers and students for each other, both ways. And she's actually helped me start to look. She's still calling it a business, and I'm still thinking what I do next. It may or may not be a business, but I'm trying to frame and articulate so who I am now, what I've been through, what I'm bringing to this, and what I'll do with it. Another part of my recent growth was Chris Casanovas, a couple years, got it in the back here now. He snuck in a little toward the end. Got a knowing that he wanted to start a Course in Miracles group, and he made the arrangements here at Unity for a Sunday noon Course in Miracles group. And another friend was the original intended co-facilitator with him. And that didn't work out. So eventually that person said to me, I think this may be your job. And like for 2 or 3 weeks, I thought, I don't know. I'm not sure I want to do that. You know, it's like, and then finally I decided, well, maybe I'll just do this until I don't. That's a good phrase. You know, it's like, you don't have to commit for anything in particular except starting, you know. And I heard a phrase the other day that said, if you start, you overcome the inertia and it changes to momentum. So, in fact, after I told Chris, as we talked on the phone, that yes, I would be willing to try that with him, then we got together and had lunch and met each other face to face. We didn't even know who the other person was until we started doing that. That's been 2 years. It's also been a delightful group. It's amazing to me that, and it's part of why I can find myself here where I'm living now, that there's 2 Course in Miracles group, both of which are loving and healthy and well attended by some overlap, but also unique participants, and that that's part of you are my community, you know, and the Sunday group folks are my community. And that happened partly because I didn't really know anybody else when I got here. But the other good thing is now there's a really cool, I think, whole New England-wide community that I did not find in Pittsburgh before I left Pittsburgh. There may be 2 or 3 course groups they can scare up around Pittsburgh within a 20-mile radius. And in Tampa, it was a little more active, and there were 2 groups, one Tuesday night and one Thursday, that had cross attendance, and I went to both of those. But there wasn't this kind of long-standing commitment by a lot of people, you know, people who started 35 years ago in some cases and learned it early before what the Course calls the celestial speed up. I think we're all in the place now where changes are just happening faster. So that's my transformation, is to even do this with no notes. The scientist, the previous junior high school teacher, would have had an outline and what I was going to say and what quotes I was going to read and how it was going to be, and that didn't happen today. So the other part of it is I want to work with the section in the Course, in the Foundation for Inner Peace version. It's called the Sane curriculum. It's on page 225 in the text. In the C&E version, it's on page 406. And it's pretty much the same. There's a few phrases that are changed. I didn't read it verbatim, but in some cases, if you call to the same section, you don't get a match between the two. It's number 7, and it's called there a special curriculum, which is part of why I changed my talk to something like a curriculum for learning love, because I wasn't sure Actually, I'm not real fond of Sane or Special as the curriculum we're learning, but there they are. And so we're going to take a look at what's here in this section. All right, here we go. Only love is strong because it's undivided. It turns out that's a really key sentence. Like a lot of sentences in A Course in Miracles, it's like it could stand alone and that would be the end, right? In the Sunday group, I think it was just last week, there was a teacher of young children who was saying, well, no, I didn't keep going on the lessons because I got all confused, and it was like I didn't know how it worked and what happened and what was there. It's just I want it to be like laid out, you know, there's the color-coded and the this side and this side and this side. And it's kind of like any of us who have previously like earned a living, or maybe even when you first start teaching, by doing that kind of thing, you better have your lessons plans together because there's a lot else going on, at least to start. So she said, and my response to her was, I think the whole course, because it came from source, from divine source, creator, from the voice of Jesus, God and Holy Spirit, is really laid out in a very circular kind of logic. If the scientist in me wanted to make all this make sense or even understand it all, I would never be standing here today. And instead of it like being laid out in a grid work, you know, kind of like a crisscross pattern of plaid, it's really written in paisley. You know how in a paisley it's all loopy-doopy, and then inside that first big loop is another loop, and then a different color. And I think the whole text all the way through, if we hang in, if we have a willingness to get started, to overcome that inertia, then it works us. If we show up, then the message somehow goes in the crevices that you don't even know are happening, and it has an effect. Sometimes you don't even know where the effect came from. In fact, almost always. But you know that it has something to do with committing to and working with this book. Only love is strong because it is undivided. The strong do not attack because they see no need to do so. Before the idea of attack can enter your mind, this is where the scientist in me is going to try to take us through the paisley and let at least a glimmer of light come through, because I think if you even get a glimmer, even if it doesn't stick, then you've got the message, you've got the help. Before the idea of attack can enter to your mind, you must have perceived yourself as weak. Now, same as defending yourself, no? Because you attack yourself and believe that the attack was effective, you hold yourself as weakened. Okay, so that's a pretty quick jump there. So you must have perceived yourself as weak. And then it immediately switches to a quick translation to you perceived yourself as weak, then you attacked yourself. Okay, so click, just that fast. No longer perceiving yourself and your brothers as equal and regarding yourself as weaker than whoever you decided attacked you because you think you're weak, and now you no longer you're putting yourself one down from the other person, right? I'm weaker, they're stronger, they're attacking me. No longer perceiving yourself and your brothers as equal and regarding yourself as weaker, you attempt to equalize, quote unquote, the situation you made. You use attack to do so because you believe that attack was successful in weakening you. Okay, so I get attacked. I leap to feeling weak, put down, and that's all in me. whether the person attacking me or not. It's like if a 2-year-old comes at me with his plastic sword, am I going to consider myself weak as he charges me with his sword? No. So it's me somehow that's judging myself unequal to my brother or sister and attacking myself. That is why the recognition of your own invulnerability is so important to the restoration of your sanity. Okay, so here's the first key. Recognize your own invulnerability. Now, have you heard that theme in A Course in Miracles before? You know, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. For now here's the big if you accept your invulnerability, that's a big if, no? That's why we're here, to learn to accept our invulnerability. You are recognizing that attack has no effect. So if the 2-year-old charges me this tall, there was no attack, there was no effect, and that's because I didn't let it in. I didn't think about it that way. Although you have attacked yourself, you will be demonstrating that nothing really happened. Therefore, by attacking, you have not done anything. Although you have attacked yourself, you will be demonstrating that nothing really happened if you accept your invulnerability. Therefore, by attacking, you have not done anything. Once you realize this, you will no longer see any sense in attack, for it manifestly does not work and cannot protect you. So if you can accept your inner invulnerability and realize that you just did it to yourself, then you realize that nothing happened. You know, when they say there's nobody else out there, it's kind of like it's my thoughts and my mind interacting with everybody I come across. And if I think I'm agitated, depressed, angry, sad, mad, it's really me and whatever's in me that needs to be healed. And I can thank that person that seemed to attack me, because now I get to follow the next steps. Therefore, by attacking, you've not done anything. Once you realize this, you will no longer see any sense in attack, for it manifestly does not work and cannot protect you. Yet, the recognition of your invulnerability has more than negative value. If your attacks on yourself have failed to weaken you, you are still strong. You therefore have no need to equalize the situation to establish your strength. So do you see how the connection to the fleeting thought that I'm weaker than this person means that I have to stand up for myself, or I'll be seen as, or believe myself to be weak. And if I think I'm weak, then I might need to attack back to, quote, equalize the relationship with my brother or sister who's completely equal with me in the first place, right? That's part of the teaching too, that we're all as valuable as Jesus. Jesus says, you know, I'm your elder brother. I'm not more and you're not less. And he's moving us toward being a companion, not just a teacher. We get through a teacher stage, and then Jesus is kind of with us, and the voice of the training and the help is what we take with us to be peaceful, to choose. You will never realize the utter uselessness of attack except by recognizing that your attack on yourself has no effects. For others do react to attack if they perceive it. So if I'm thinking I need to attack, even if I may not say anything, others can perceive that, right? You don't have to have somebody yell at you to understand that they're upset. So that's coming through. And if you are trying to attack them, you will be unable to avoid interpreting their reaction to my supposed attack now, as reinforcement. And there's another if. If I am trying to attack them, I will be unable to avoid interpreting their response to my attack, as reinforcement for me, for what I'm thinking wrongly. For you're always the first point of your attack. For you are always the first point of attack. I'm attacking myself, right? That's the point. So if I'm thinking I'm less than anybody else, that's an attack thought on me. I tend to lose my place here.
We all do.
If others do react to attack, if they perceive it. And if you are trying to attack them, you will be unable to avoid interpreting this. That's way far back. For you are always the first point of your attack. And if this has never been, it has no consequences. So it's never been because it's me attacking me. And so it's in my power of free will, decision-making, choice to see it differently and turn it around. The Holy Spirit's love is your strength. For yours is divided and therefore not real. So when you're in this mode of feeling weak, you don't have any strength anymore because you're divided. That first sentence, only love is strong because it is undivided. And now this next one, the Holy Spirit's love is your strength, for yours is divided and therefore not real. You cannot trust your own love when you attack it. You cannot learn of perfect love with a split mind, because a split mind has made itself a poor learner. You tried to make the separation eternal because you wanted to retain the characteristics of creation, but with your own content. So I wanted to stay separate because then ego's in charge. You know, and then I can control the content. You know, it's like I do it my way. And how often does that work out when you realize? Not too often. And it's funny to me now, looking back, what a big chunk of my life I spent thinking I had to do it my way. Those were the rules of the world, the rules of the world, that I had to control it, or I wouldn't get good grades, or I wouldn't make friends, or I wouldn't be there on time, or it wouldn't come out coherent if I'm standing and talking. Yet creation is not of you, and poor learners do need special teaching. You have learning handicaps in a very literal sense. There are areas in your learning skills that are so impaired that you can progress only under constant, clear-cut direction provided by, all caps, teacher who can transcend your limited resources. So there's the Holy Spirit's love. There's our teacher. You have learning handicaps in a very literal sense. There are areas in your learning skills that are so impaired that you can progress only under constant, clear-cut direction provided by a teacher who can transcend your limited resources. So we have to acknowledge that we might do better if we followed a teacher, asked for guidance, stopped and listened. He becomes your resource. Because of yourself, you cannot learn. The learning situation in which you placed yourself is impossible. And in this situation of trying to make the separation eternal and listen to my ego and the rules of the world, in this situation, you clearly require a special teacher and a special curriculum. Poor learners are not good choices as teachers, either for themselves or for anyone else. You would hardly turn to them to establish the curriculum by which you can escape from their limitations. If they understood what is, what is beyond them, they would not be handicapped. If they understood what is beyond them, in other words, if I realized there was wisdom greater than mine, then I wouldn't be handicapped, right? Amen. And that I can access it. It's not just that it's there, it's that repeatedly in a variety of ways, the Course shows us different ways we can do that. We can access. You do not know the meaning of love. Whoa. You do not know the meaning of love. And that is your handicap. Do not attempt to teach yourself what you do not understand, and do not try to set up curriculum goals where yours have clearly failed. Your learning goal has been not to learn. Your learning goal has been not to learn. When it's directed by ego, that's the goal. And this cannot lead to successful learning. You cannot transfer what you have not learned. And the impairment of the ability to generalize is a crucial learning failure. The ability to generalize, to me, says that eventually I do recognize all the different ways A Course in Miracles says I can stop and ask for guidance and ask for help. And there are really multiple different ways. Sometimes we want a way. And when we go to the National Conference for A Course in Miracles, you'll find lots of different teachers, all of whom have helpful ways that they use, that they've kind of adopted for their method to get in touch. And for me, it partly says, well, maybe I don't have enough ways. But another way is, my way is working, and yes, I'll pick up some tips and other things, but if I get to be me in all this, nowhere in this does it say I have to be like any other teacher or any other person. And in fact, that's part of the learning for me. So when I first got here and Lisa was teaching like she was 3 years ago, which is different than where she is now, it just is like it would have been different for me. And a part of me said, oh, Lisa wouldn't say it that way or do it that way. I better not do it. I better change or do something else. But that's really not the point. The point is to get to the place where I accept and know my Christ consciousness, to the place where I have all the guidance that's needed and ways to stop and listen and be helped and follow it, that I can give the gift that only this Nancy can give.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the same is true for each one of you. None of us has to be like anybody else in this room or this city or this world. In fact, the whole point is we're a creation of God. We were created like God with power and as a gift. Yes, as creators. As people who, out of our unique set of experiences and gifts and knowing, get to go be an example. Just to live it. Would you ask those who have failed to learn what learning aids are for? They do not know. If they could interpret the aids correctly, they would have learned from them. I have said that the ego's rule is seek and do not find. Like stay occupied, so I'll do everything that they ask of me in high school so I can go get more education. I'll do everything that's asked of me the best I can when I get to college so I can, now that was a big leap off place for me. I had no boyfriend. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I went and did actually teacher corps in inner city schools in Pittsburgh. And then, okay, I'll do that until I get a full-time job. And then I taught. And then I'm thinking, eventually it feels like this isn't quite what I thought I was doing all this prep work for. So Then I went back to chemical engineering school when I was 30. And then I got hired by Alcoa. And then I retired early. So I've had 20 years to try to see what Nancy's supposed to be doing. And it feels like somehow this is a new plateau. And I think we all have those steps along the way. And you get to choose and go do it. All right, let's see, where was I? The result of this curriculum of the ego, seek and do not find, this curriculum goal is obvious. Every legitimate teaching aid, every real instruction, and every sensible guide to learning will be misinterpreted. Since they are all for facilitating the learning, this strange curriculum is against. If you are trying to learn how not to learn and the aim of your teaching is to defeat yourself, what can you expect but confusion? Yeah. Isn't it fun to be able to laugh at some of this stuff now? It's like, it's just funny, right? It's like, such a curriculum does not make sense. This attempt at learning, in quotes, has so weakened your mind that you cannot love. And it's not just we have weak minds or we're letting thoughts in that are not true. It hampers. It doesn't say you can't love as much. It says you cannot love. For the curriculum you have chosen is against love and amounts to a course in how to attack yourself. It is, right? We've all been, until we start, take a first step, we're all figuring out how to attack ourselves and doing it in this way and then this way. And then maybe if I tried this and if I change careers or if I relocate, then it'll look different. A supplementary goal in this curriculum is learning how not to overcome the split that makes its primary aim believable. So there it is. Keep your split mind. Be divided within yourself. That's the ego curriculum. And I was pretty compliant for a pretty long time. And sometimes I still am. And you will not overcome the split in this curriculum. For all your learning will be on its behalf, the ego's behalf. Yet, your mind speaks against your learning as your learning speaks against your mind. There's the division. And so you fight against all learning and succeed, for that is what you want. Can't even blame anybody else. Imagine that. But perhaps you do realize even yet that there is something you want to learn and that you can learn it. Because it is your choice to do so. Let's do that one again. But perhaps you do not realize even yet that there is something you want to learn and that you can learn it because it is your choice to do so. You who have tried to learn what you do not want should take heart. For although the curriculum you set yourself is depressing indeed, it is merely ridiculous if you look at it. It is possible that the way to achieve a goal, is it possible that the way to achieve a goal is not to attain it? Resign now as your own teacher. There's the catchphrase, right? Resign now as your own teacher. Dun, da, dun. Anybody want to say, I'm in? I'm going to resign. Uncle is about it. Yeah, a lot of times that's it. When there's enough pain or drama or whatever, this resignation will not lead to depression. It is merely the result of an honest appraisal of what you have taught yourself and of the learning outcomes that have resulted. Under the proper learning conditions, which you can neither provide nor understand, you will become an excellent learner and an excellent teacher. And here we are in the Teachers of God Foundation, knowing that I'm a teacher and a student, and that it's always both happening at the same time. But it is not so yet, and will not be so until the whole learning situation, as you have set it up, is reversed. Your learning potential, properly understood, is limitless. Limitless. Because it will lead you to God. You can teach the way to Him and learn it if you follow, capital T, capital W, the teacher who knows the way to Him and understands His curriculum for learning it. The curriculum is totally unambiguous. It really isn't a problem that the directions are unclear. It's like we keep making excuses for not following them. I lost it again. Okay, you can teach the way to Him and learn it if you follow the teacher who knows the way to Him and understands His curriculum for learning it. The curriculum is totally unambiguous because the goal is not divided, and the means and the end are in complete accord. You need offer only undivided attention. Everything else will be given you, for you really want to learn aright, and nothing can oppose the decision of God's Son. When I decide, the power of God Himself and me as a holy Son of God, a holy child of God, is activated. It's triggered. It's like just putting your hand up there was part of that trigger. Referring to God's Son, His learning is as unlimited as He is. All right. That's the end of that section. Comments, questions?
You are lovely.
Is this on? You don't have to say that out there. Anybody?
Nancy, that was awesome. I just love your spirit. You're just such a sweet light. You really are. And, while you were talking, I was writing in my thing here, I choose to be happy in heaven, here and now, where God's perfect love is for me. Anywhere else is hell. And that is where I've kind of been the past few days, too, because the lesson yesterday, I forget what it was, but it was more of like, I have the right to choose. Whether basically do I want to be in hell or heaven? And that really hit me. I want to be happy. And that's where I want to be. And that's what we're here for. I love when you said co-creators and all of that stuff. I've been led to all these different teachings because I had to wake up because I was in so much pain. And you said it perfectly. How much did it take for me to finally say uncle? It took a lot.
And maybe really, more than once.
It really did take a lot. I was just joking with her, and I said, honestly, for someone like me, when you go get my marriage certificate, I should have said, get ready for attack. Because that's what I used those things for. The children, the husband, the job, everything to beat myself up with as I attacked outward. So that was beautiful. You said it perfect. Thank you.
Of course, I read from A Course in Miracles primarily, but that makes it easy to be perfectly, right?
I just want to say thank you so much. I was literally mesmerized since you stood up there. I love the way you expressed this and the way you read it, and just the emphasis that you put on it and the way you described it. It's clearer to me than ever because of you, the ridiculousness of our shenanigans. It really is. And, and to resign as your own teacher, it's just like something I wish I could like tattoo on the front of my hands because it's just, again, that's another one of those sentences that if you just did that, if you just took that in, you know, it's sort of the whole way. So I just want to thank you. And what you said about your evolution and coming to a place where you know that you have your own unique divine expression and gift sent to the sonship in just your Nancy Gifty way gives us all permission to really shine and do the same thing. No. Gives us all permission to shine in our own Lindy Gifty every way. So just thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome. So, I mean, for me, one of the things that was kind of a turning point for me was recognizing when I finally recognized that I couldn't blame anybody else. That was the beginning of knowing the truth, right? And that was the beginning of being true to myself and unifying and not listening to the ego anymore. And it was only from there that my own healing could happen. So it's awesome.
It seems to me that, coming next, free will is the two-edged sword. You know, free will is what lets us follow the ego path for as long as we're ready. You know, as long, keep going. But it's also the source of my power, my free will to say enough. I resign as my teacher, and I'm going to go try something different. You know, I'm going to go looking for or do what's in front of me to do, so that I can clear the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's almost like you start to levitate, you know. David.
You said something I want to follow up on. You said, I just read it. And what you read, using my normal way of reading as a student, would have taken maybe 2 minutes. You read it slowly and thoughtfully. And it took me a long time, because I started this thing about 25 or 30 years ago too. And part of my problem was that I was time bound in my ego's way of thinking how you should read something. You won't get it if you do that, you know, and it's just a lesson. You're a great teacher. You don't even know how a great teacher you are, but
thank you.
Until when I finally made the commitment, after meeting Lisa and after having my heart surgery and hearing this woman after the massacre of those kids in Connecticut, who was a Course in Miracles teacher, things that happened, I finally came to the conclusion, and this was Holy Spirit, I guess, working in me, Dave, it doesn't matter how fast or how thick the book is. Read it a page at a time. Yeah. Just read it. Don't stop because it's too much, it's too big, I don't have the time, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't until I turned that corner that I began to be open to the teachings. And, you know, I mean, there is so much in every single sentence, like you demonstrated, that you can stop and think on that for about 3 or 4 minutes and how it applies in my life. Yeah. So if you're looking for a quick fix and a quick read, this isn't the place for you.
Well, the read isn't quick, but the fix could be quick.
Yes.
You know?
If you start to engage, I guess that's what I want to leave with a positive note. Don't let the thickness of the book and the language stop you. Just stay with it and something will happen.
That slow and deliberate reading is probably a sign of my science mind, which I think mostly came through my dad. He's the one who my mother used to accuse of memorizing the comics, you know, because he read them so slowly. She was sure he was memorizing them all. And, you know, they're not too complicated mostly. And it's partly why I would rather know a little bit really well than to skim through a bunch of stuff and not know what I just did. And yet other people do really well at, you know, and right. And I've heard I think Bill said you read this the first time through in a couple weeks or something like that.
No, a couple of months.
Couple of months.
It was a weekend.
Bill is obsessed.
Let's ask whatever.
I read a chapter a day one time.
A chapter
31 days.
I remember soon after the coaching program you said I'm going to read a chapter a week.
I did that too.
And does anybody want to join me? And I could do that at that point. And because I didn't have a lot else going on to keep me occupied once my mom was taking her nap or sleeping, I thought, oh, I can read a chapter in a week. And I would. And you also said something like, if you read it out loud, it can actually have a different kind of impact. But for partly you're actually catching every word. And partly, like my very first Course in Miracles group leader said, it's psychoactive. You don't even know what it's doing for you and with you. That goes back to the Paisley, right? It's like, you don't know what path you're following, but there you are, following the pattern round and round and round.
Working underground.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say you truly are an extraordinary teacher, and I'm so grateful for the way your mind works, for the way you show up. And I agree with what David was just saying, is that, and what you just expressed, is that I do believe, even though I've done the speed reading thing and I've done these challenges that I set myself to, is that if we just got one idea perfectly, that's what Jesus is telling us. Like, it really is a hologram.
Close it and put it away.
It's like one idea understood perfectly, and you know all things.
Yes.
And so I want to just express something to you, and I might cry. I'm just going to get up. And Nancy's probably not going to want me to do this, but I'm feeling to do it. Okay?
Okay.
How many of you love the 40-day program? How many of you love the work that comes out of the Teachers of God Foundation? Okay. I am going to cry. So, Bill and I had this idea to start the Teachers of God Foundation, and Monica's crying. And we had the idea to start the Teachers of God Foundation in the summer of 2012, and we had no money. And now Nancy's crying. But it's like when you hear a voice to do something, everybody's crying. It's like, okay, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're just going to say yes to this idea. And we want to inspire and support and encourage people to go through the transformation. We made the first steps to get the accountant to do the legal work, and no money. I was working as a Zumba instructor at the time because I didn't want a 9-to-5 job. I was no longer teaching. I had ditched the coaching. I was in that transition space that you talk about. Like, all right, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but I don't want to get in the way. I knew at least that much. And so we had this idea to start the foundation. I'm doing Zumba 3 times a week. I love it. I love dancing. I put out a little donation box. I'm getting approximately $5 a week to $40 a week. That's how much money I was making back then. But it was an excitement for me of like, we are here to listen, trust, and follow and live the principles of A Course in Miracles. So had the idea to offer the 40-day, offer it to everyone, offer it for free. Out of nowhere, and you guys have heard this story, I got a check for $10,000 from this one.
Well, it wasn't. And my side of this is that was just when the settlement of my mom and dad's estate was completed, and I got my portion of selling a beach house that had appreciated over 40 years from like $30,000 to $840,000. So I got my share, and your teaching had included, not far ahead of that, tithing. Mm-hmm. And I had such a good time with the idea that, oh, look, part of it was, what the hell am I going to do with that much money? And then the other thing was, oh, good, look how much I can tithe. And so at that point, because it was the biggest one I figured I'd ever do, and a once in a lifetime thing, I looked around and I thought, so who in my life has made a difference for me? And I picked probably a dozen friends and influences, and Lisa was one. And I had just decided that I could experiment with this. I could live this. It mattered. And so $10,000 was the right number. And you know how she puts out in her emails along the way, you know, well, Bill and I just did this and we don't have the money. We don't have the $2,000 to pay the fee and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm thinking, you do now. I'd put it in the mail, but it hadn't arrived. It hadn't arrived. So, and then you didn't believe it was a real check.
And I didn't think, I'd never seen a check like that. I'd never seen a $1,000 check before. And I thought it was fake at first because I had just done a class where there was a prosperity class where, you know how they sometimes say write fake checks. So we're like, let's all write fake checks that we're millionaires. And so when I got the check in the mail for $10,000 written out to Lisa Natoli from Nancy Fitzgerald, I'm like, Bill, is this real? And then I realized she wasn't in the class. She wasn't part of that class. I didn't hear part of that. And so I'm so grateful because then I tied the 1,000 on it. I said, okay, like we're really trusting in these principles and they don't make any logical sense most of the time. And then we took $9,000 and we put it into a bank account that we opened for a foundation that did not yet exist, but we saw it in our minds. And that was the start. And so I honor you, Nancy. I just had to tell everybody. I know Nancy just flies low under the radar. She doesn't want recognition for anything. You are an extraordinary teacher, and I love you so much.
Thank you.
It's always good to hear about miracles like that.
It really is. As you were talking, it seemed like there was follow-up, but I don't know what it is now. So I'm just going to say thank you all for being here, for listening, for being mighty companions. Oh, Bonnie has, okay, your turn.
First, I'd like to just acknowledge Holy Spirit for giving me this message before I arrived today. I always love when that happens. But at the beginning of today, it's just so clear to me what a gift this is. What a gift each and every person I encounter here is. I recently started Lisa's and Bill's Living in Purpose. And I want to share an experience. So I've been coming to these meetings for 2 years. I was also doing another meeting which is pointing towards God and God's will. And with Living in Purpose, I discovered how sneaky the ego is. Because I've spent 2 years not reaching for my relationship with God, but reaching for the fix to not feel the way I felt anymore. My will of how to make it work and how to be in this world. And it's such a gift that I get the honor of being with you, Nancy, and all of you in this room.
We love you, Bonnie.
Really, I want to magnify the different teaching styles because the different teaching styles show me, each one of you that is here, show me that to honor who I am is the best possible choice, always. Because when I see you honor who you are, it gives me the strength and the courage to look at that. So thank you for always, all of you, for being such a fine example of inspiration and love. And thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. That was awesome. Well, Nancy is one of so many of you that are teachers in the waiting, teachers that haven't stepped up yet, but also teachers that have. And we just have such a rich resource of God's presence waiting to be heard, seen, listened to, connected with. And I'll tell you something. I love it when I get a nugget from someone that I haven't heard before, haven't heard in a while, or something drops in. We each get our own little nugget that's just for us. And the thing I loved that was expressed today, besides the awesomeness of the course and how Jesus, helps us to focus on what we're doing so that we can be what he is guiding us to be and know. But what Nancy expressed here, that we all have our individual gift that's given to us as a download. It's God's currency of our oneness with it, that we express in our own way. And Nancy, she has this careful, methodical. I love hearing about your dad memorizing the comics. That's like the funniest thing I ever heard. But I love her as a teacher also, and I love Laura, and I love each one of you, Roxy and Lisa, and I just love having so many gifted, beautiful teachers of God. Thank you for being part of this community and being what we are, and a reflection of just exactly what Nancy was talking about. Thank you all for being here, and thank you live streamers for joining us. Why don't we all stand and join hands, and we'll close with a prayer. And wow, I don't know, where did everybody sneak in from? This went from about 10 people to about 40 people. Wow. Okay. So there's a love box in the back if you would like to support this ministry and this space of sharing and joining. The love box is in the back, and if you're online and you would like to donate, there's a donate button there at the top of the Teachers of God, teachersofgod.org. And we'll do the love offering first. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give. It's all that I am. Amen. Thank you, God. And let's just be in this recognition of this quiet space, the space in between the words, in between the thoughts, the space of recognition. Let us all just recognize right now our own holiness, our holiness. And this holiness, this is where we're all the same. This is where we're one, right here in this wholeness, this presence. And it's in the quiet, right here, that we know the being, the presence. It's in quiet that we receive God's word today. And it's just as Nancy said, that it comes to all of us in our own way, our readiness, our openness to receive it. It comes. It's present. It's always been here. It always is. And this quiet place is our sanctuary. And from this place, we just share the gratitude and the love and the blessings we share with each one that's listening, that's watching. And from where we are right now, we send love to every thought that we have about anyone in our mind, any family member, any friend, any situation. We extend and express the love of God. So it is. Amen. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, live streamers. We love you. We bless you. And we thank God for you. Bye-bye.